Life Church Open Network, welcome. We are talking today about doing online ministry, and I'm joined today by some of the Life Church online team. Austin Taylor, he leads our training and development for all of the people, the volunteers and the chat hosts that it takes to run our own online ministry. And Raphael Abreu, he is the host team pastor, so he helps lead them too. So guys, thank you so much for being here. We talked in another video about the big picture of what online ministry is. So if you want, you can go back and watch them. If you're asking even what is online ministry and why should I do it, go back and watch that video. We're going to really focus in though today on the nuts and bolts of what it takes to do online ministry. There's kind of two big main components. There's a lot that goes into it, but two big things. First, it's the platform. That's the tool that we actually use, the software that we use online to make it happen. So we started church online ministry here at Life Church about 10 years ago, and then a few years into that, we realized we need to build something that's going to really facilitate this idea of community around content. So we built the platform. It features a video window, chat, translation, one-on-one prayer, a lot of stuff that just really allow all of our team to interact with people all over the world in real time. So Church Online Platform is the first thing. And then the second thing that you're so involved with, it's near and dear to your hearts, is chat hosts. And here at Life Church, our chat hosts are a lot of times volunteers. In your church, if you do it, it may be someone on staff. We really love using volunteers for this, though. It's a great way for them to get plugged into hands-on ministry. So we're going to talk a lot about volunteers today. So first off, let's just talk about volunteers. What does a church online volunteer actually do?
Yeah, so our Church Online volunteers help to create an atmosphere, a welcoming atmosphere for people, for our guests from all over the world. And they connect with them, they engage with them, they might answer questions, they'll keep the conversation going. And they're experts at really helping those in the public chat connect with one another and also with the message. So that idea of creating community tied to the content, that's happening there through our host team volunteers. Okay.
So the service is happening for us, Pastor Craig is preaching, and maybe someone has a question about what he said, or maybe there's like an interesting point and one of the chat hosts could put in that quote that he just said, stuff like that. They're facilitating that conversation. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah. What else does a chat host do?
So they also could pray for people, when so people might have a prayer request and click on the live prayer button. Our chat host will actually go and pray with them individually, or also they could initiate a direct chat conversation with them and encourage them that way. There's so many different ways where that personal connection can happen.
Yeah, and I actually kind of forgot about that. Like, you can be in the public chat, or you can do direct chat, or you can do live prayer. So that's all ways that these volunteers are talking to attenders online. Yeah. Did you say that there was another thing that the volunteers do?
No, that hits what we call our big three, would be welcoming people onto the site, facilitating discussion around the message, and then offering prayer for people.
So you mentioned a public chat. So is there also a chat just for the hosts?
Sure, yeah, there is a private volunteer chat for the host, and that gives them the opportunity to interact with each other, keep each other encouraged. And, leadership happens in there, encouragement, interaction, and then also at the same time, they're interacting in the public chat. Yeah. So a couple of things are happening there at the same time.
Yeah, so I know in the platform, we've built this host workspace that is like a one-stop shop for everything that a host volunteer would need. So it is in a space separate from that public chat, but they can toggle over. And then describe for me a little bit like what a host view looks like and what tools are at their fingertips.
Yeah, so our host view, essentially, it came from lots of feedback from our hosting volunteers to what we see today. Yeah. And what we realize is that our host teams need three things, and in order to operate well and just really engage with people. And one of those things is, number one, they need to be able to connect with one another as a team in that volunteer chat that you mentioned. Yep. And also they need to be able to connect with our guests out in the public chat. So there's that. And then the third thing is that as a team, we want to be able to equip them and resource them in this view. So they get all three of those things, and all of those things are working together to help create community over the content.
Yeah, and I've seen it when I volunteer at Church Online. I love it because I know the view is a little bit different. If you volunteer at Church Online a lot, you maybe have seen the sermon 12 times. So in the host workspace, the video gets small up in the corner because you don't really need to be intently watching it, but you can keep up with it. And then there's the public chat side by side with the volunteer chat, and there's all the like mute controls and stuff if you need to mute someone. And then I know there's also like the slides control. You can change the slides that are running if you need to. And then I love that where you can upload the notes. Like, so I know one thing we'll talk about in a second is all the little like helpful hints and blurbs and stuff that we have for people. Do you want to talk a little bit about that part of it?
Yeah, sure. So more feedback that we received from our volunteers. We love to take it in and put it into action to help them.
And that's what's so nice about having the dev team here at the church that actually built Church Online platform, because then we're able to actually meet together and say, you know what, this part of the platform could be better, and they actually build it then. Yeah. So you got feedback?
Yeah, that said, man, in a busy service, the chat is flying, and it can be kind of hard to keep up with that conversation. And especially if you're trying to connect with somebody and you're also trying to promote something like volunteering or joining a small group. And just on a very practical level, some people just can't type that fast. And so what we did, just a very simple solution that you could incorporate too, is we just created a Google Doc that's linked in that host resource section. So a host team volunteer is going to see it when they log in. And the Google Doc just has examples of blurbs that the volunteers can either just copy and paste right there into the chat, or better yet, they can use it as sort of an example and then craft it in their own words. And so one example that I have here is just a post that a lot of our services start with. So a host team volunteer would put this as the very first thing, and it just says, "Welcome to Life Church Online. Our next service starts in just 15 minutes when we'll join together for some awesome music and a powerful message. In the meantime, grab some coffee, invite a friend, and let us know where you're joining us from today." And so it's just a great way to kick it off.
And it does sound very real, even if you did copy paste it. So that is a really good way to equip your volunteers then with, you know, if like public speaking or something is not totally their strong point, but you can give them these little blurbs that actually walk them through it, and then they're able to connect with people. Yeah, I love that. So where do you find volunteers to do this?
Yeah, so a couple of ways that we
Because they don't, sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but like it's interesting, what we've learned is they don't have to even really go to our church physically to volunteer.
Yeah,
most of them don't? Whoa, I didn't know that. So
Hardly any of them do.
yeah, so where do you find them and how do you get them?
So one place to find them is right there in the Church Online experience. So in that public chat, you might see somebody who's engaging with other guests well, making them feel welcome. That's one of the characteristics of a great volunteer that we look for. And so recruitment can happen within there. You also have social media. You can invite through Facebook, Instagram, you know, your social media channels is another great way to invite people. And then I also think about, like, you know, who do we know? Who's that coworker, that family member, that friend, somebody that you can invite in and say, hey, you need to check this out because it is the best thing since sliced bread. So yeah, so those are some great ways, some great options, I think, that we've seen some success with.
So were you going to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just going to add, we also really encourage our current volunteers, empower them to say, who do you know in your circles that would love to have this opportunity to reach people through Church Online? And that's a way that your team can begin to multiply its size.
Well, and it's interesting from a time commitment and an energy standpoint, because it is all online, which is the beauty of it. They don't need to come to a building and drive there and wear a certain t-shirt. They can just go to a coffee shop or be in their jammies at home and hop online, and they can serve for an hour and then they've served. That's so cool. So if a volunteer does show interest, how do you onboard them, or is there some kind of vetting process? You know, because they are out there representing your church. So what do you do to like bring them on board and see what kind of fit they are?
Yeah. So for us at Life Church as a whole, every volunteer goes through a background check process, and that applies to Church Online as well. So every volunteer fills out an application for us, and part of that application is a background check. If they're international and we can't run a typical background check, we have sort of our own formula for a replacement for that.
So what's the formula?
It includes the application and 2 references and then a Skype interview with one of us or with a key leader at Church Online. So they're going to fill out that application. Once we approve it and get them officially ready to join the team, that's sort of when the onboarding and training piece happens. And so during that time, we really have two goals as a Church Online team. The first is that we want to connect them with somebody right away, because we don't want them to feel like they've just put all this energy into an application, into references or whatever. We want to keep it about the people, so we're going to connect them to the leader.
Connecting them to, like a key volunteer leader or a staff member maybe?
Yeah,
okay.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah. We want to get them connected to somebody that they can begin to build a relationship with. Then the second thing is we want to train them on why we do what we do and how we do what we do and what exactly they're going to do. So there's a lot of information we could include in that, but our philosophy is to give them just the basic thing to get them there day one. Okay. And what we found is if we can get people there day one, they're going to experience the joy of serving. They're going to experience how awesome it is to serve in this way. And after that, they're probably going to have a lot of questions. So from there, there's a whole bank of resources that they have at their disposal. And any questions that they have are probably going to be answered there. And then we're providing ongoing development and leadership opportunities for them to grow.
Okay.
Yeah.
So on day one, like what are maybe like one or two key things that new volunteer does need to know or like know how to do or understand walking in?
Yeah. So the first thing would be they need to know the vision of what Church Online is.
So what isn't it? We talk a lot about what it is, but like what is like maybe kind of a trap that people fall into?
Yes. So the ultimate trap for Church Online is that it's sick church or vacation church. It's just it's just a convenient thing for people to go when they have to stay home from church or when they're away from home. And it is those things.
It can be that.
It can be those things, and that's great that our church provides that, but that's not really the vision. Okay. That's sort of just a bonus. Yeah. So we definitely want them. Yeah. Oh yeah. I think we all have. Yeah. So we definitely want them to know the vision. We want them to know who we are as a church, because as you mentioned earlier, most of our volunteers don't even come from Life Church.
Yeah.
So
from physical campuses.
Right. Yeah. So we're teaching them our DNA, our core values, our mission statement, so that they can be empowered to represent that to all the people they're going to minister to online. And then after that, it's going to be just the very practical things of this is what the website is. This is where you go to create your account. This is your team leader that you're going to be talking with every week. Those just very basic fundamental things. These are the big three that we talked about earlier of what you're actually going to do as a volunteer. And if we can teach them the why and the who and the what, they're good to go.
Man, thank you, Austin, and thank you to Raphael for talking all about how volunteers serve at Church Online here at Life Church. Stick around with us. Up next, we are going to be answering some of the most common questions that people ask about doing online ministry.